You're not bored yet? You soon will be. We're getting to the front of the car now and going through the front suspension. This could take a while. So she's up in the lift to get you a good look at this. You've seen the brakes and the way that works. We're running Group 4's modular setup. Group 4 Galway do this modular setup in the front for an Escort, and it's one of the 2 or 3 eureka moments I've had in my rallying where you just find something and you go, why the shit wasn't I run this 1,000 years ago? They've developed this quite extensively and they've just made it bulletproof. Nice heavy, well produced TCAs, multi-adjustable. They're aluminium upright. It bolts onto, well, in my case, the DMS leg, which they actually manufacture for me as well, and a really heavy pin out to for your wheel bearings and larger wheel bearings, and their aluminium hub and their wheel studs. The whole thing comes as a kit. And last time I worked it out, if you're building an Escort from scratch and you're using traditional, like the traditional Mk2 stuff, cross members, TCAs, uprights, brackets, tensions or compression struts, all the bits and pieces. As far as I remember, there's maybe 150, 200 quid of difference in buying the whole kit either way. And it's a no-brainer for me. It's just the amount of things I've had with these and not broken them or bent them and got me to the end of a stage where I've literally felled a post or something, or done some stupid stuff, and these things have held on. It's just quite unbelievable. Right, so I'm running anti-roll bar as well, which is again Group 4's anti-roll bar. That's the 21mm anti-roll bar as far as I remember. Again, I play with that. On a wet day I would hook that off. Good dry, fast day, it keeps the car planted well at the front and she doesn't roll just as quickly. My 4-way DMS in the front, same as the back. They're basically an upside down rear shock. So we have 2 rebound adjustments in there, low speed, and then a small 7mm spanner fits the inside one, which is the high speed one. And our bump adjusters are in the canister up above. So some of you may have noticed at this point that you can't see where the steering rack's at. I decided last year to play a bit with Ackerman Angle, and as you may or may not know, with Ackerman you can't do a whole lot on an Escort when the rack's at the front, because in that case you need to get the drumstick or the rod end out as close to the disc as you can get, and the disc always gets in the way, so there's not much you can do. So I moved it to the back. It did a couple of things. I made me cross member to suit it, so I was able to lower the engine and get the engine down as low as possible, which actually made a fair difference. The engine's dropped maybe another 25mm. But then I've moved the rack to the back, which goes the opposite direction. Basically, it means that instead of having the rose joint out as close to the disc as possible, you have to bring it in a bit. So I played about with that. I've made a multi-point on the steering arm so I can move that back and forth, and I've played about with that a fair bit last year, and I've had a sort of a sweet spot where I'm real happy with her, the way she's turning in. Basically the advantage of that is that I'll get a slightly better turn in on sharp corners like squares and hairpins and stuff, where an Escort tends to get clumsy unless you're sliding. If you're coming into a big open hairpin and you're sliding and you're ever going around at the back of the pendulum effect, the Escort's great. But if you come into a wee narrow shitty thing and you're just trying to steer around it, they tend to want to go straight on. So that helps there. It makes no difference in high speed corners. Group 4 are going to start manufacturing that as a setup, so you'll be able to buy it if you want. It's basically to get around the problem of the rack being the wrong way. It's a left-hand drive rack flipped upside down and mounted on. So that took me the best part of a year messing about with that. It didn't take long to make it up. A week of evenings got it all made up, but perfecting it and just getting it to the way you want, because if you do through Ackerman and get it completely through, that when you're going around a real sharp corner, the inside wheel's turning more than the outside wheel to get around that corner, you turn out that you struggle to get tire heat in then when you're on fast open stuff. So I had to bring it back a wee bit so I'm still able to conjure some heat in the front tires. I'm running tension struts. Compression is probably the optimum for tarmac, and I have the compression brackets still on the chassis to do that. But we're into the problem with the rack since I moved it at the back. I may start to play about and see if I can make maybe like a wishbone thing where it goes out over the top and bottom. but through the amount of travel in the wheel, this arc changes quite a bit. So that's going to be fairly big, but it's something I have to play with. At the time, before, when I was still playing with this and you know, leaving it that I could go back to the traditional setup, I just went tension just to keep it out of the way and get it up and running. And to be fair, I don't feel that it's causing a problem. Although if you sit and look at it in your mind's eye, compression strut is probably the best way for a tarmac car. I would always run tension on a gravel car just purely for the strength and the hit you take. A compression strut struggles to survive that. So front end, what else can I tell you? I run just over 4 degrees of caster in the front, and I used to run nearly 2 degrees of camber, but I've come back now. I'm running only about a degree. That's something I play with from time to time as well. Tracking wise, I run on 0 toe. I used to run it toeing out quite a bit before I started doing the Ackerman thing, and it did help to turn in the tighter corners, but it left her a bit twitchy under heavy braking, coming down until big stops when you'd be coming, say, from 100 mile an hour down and braking hard. She would get a bit squirmy and try and follow each individual wheel as she, whatever way she decided to do it. So that's negated that now. I can run a 0 toe, and she brakes really well now in a straight line when you're coming down to some of the big stops, chicanes and the likes. But we still have the crisp turn in because of the Ackerman angle we've created. Somebody asked me about the brackets at the front here, the bracket plates. So the tension goes into that. Again, that's a big Group 4 item, and it goes in, it triangulates into the corner. So it bolts straight forward there and through to the chassis. So it's a nice, well anchored item, and that roll bar goes through it as well, and that comes as a kit from them. So it all does the one thing at the same time. There you go. I think that's the front end pretty well covered. Until the next time.